When the guards ran, the humans stayed, protecting the alien queen. From a distance, the palace shimmered like a jewel suspended in the sky. Its walls, made of a translucent material stronger than steel, seemed almost alive, pulsing faintly with light. It was a place that spoke of power, wisdom, and centuries of rule by the alien race known as the Velari. Inside, the halls were quiet and serene. Elaborate tapestries depicted the history of the Velari, wars fought, alliances forged, and the reigns of past queens. The current queen, Zoria, moved gracefully through these halls, her presence alone commanding attention. She wore a robe that flowed like liquid starlight, embroidered with patterns of her ancestors' achievements. Her eyes, large and luminescent, reflected both intelligence and the burden of leadership. On this day, however, the palace's calm would be shattered. Lieutenant Mara Keen, a human diplomat from Earth, had been stationed at the palace as part of a joint alliance between humans and Velari. Unlike most humans, Mara had no fear in facing the unknown. She was not taller than an average Velari, nor physically stronger, but her mind worked differently. Humans had a gift for thinking outside strict rules, for improvising when situations became dangerous. Today, that gift would become the only hope for Queen Zoria. Mara had been walking along the East Wing, reviewing reports from Velari advisors, when a distant vibration shook the palace floors. At first, she thought it might be a minor tremor, something the planet occasionally experienced. But the soft tremor quickly escalated into a deafening roar. The lights flickered, and alarms began to echo through the marble halls. Mara's instincts told her immediately that this was no natural event. She sprinted toward the queen's chambers, her boots clicking against the polished floors. As she ran, she noticed the palace's elite guards, tall, armored Velari warriors with energy shields and plasma blades, rushing past her in disarray. Normally, these guards were a symbol of unshakable security. Today, they ran. The human felt a pang of alarm. If they are fleeing, this is serious, she thought. Mara had seen humans panic in dangerous situations before, but she had never seen Velari guards lose composure. That alone confirmed that something extraordinary was happening. She reached Queen Zoria's chambers and found the queen standing at the balcony, gazing at the horizon. A fleet of unfamiliar ships was approaching, sleek and dark, moving faster than any Velari craft Mara had seen. Mara's heart raced, but her mind was clear. She knelt slightly before the queen in respect. "Your Majesty," Mara said calmly, "you need to move immediately. The palace is under attack." Zoria turned to look at Mara, her luminous eyes widening slightly. She had faced many threats before, but this fleet moved with a precision and silence that unsettled even her. "I see," the queen said, her voice soft but carrying authority. "The guards, they have fled?" Mara nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty, but I am not leaving. We can escape together if you follow my lead." For a moment there was silence. Then Zoria nodded slowly, the trust in her expression directed entirely toward the human who had just spoken. "Very well. Lead the way, Mara Keen." Mara moved quickly, guiding the queen through the secret corridors she had memorized during her months in the palace. The corridors were narrow and winding, designed centuries ago for stealth and emergency evacuation. They were filled with strange devices that hummed softly, some projecting holographic lights, others scanning for intruders. To an alien, the corridors were familiar and reassuring. To a human, they were puzzling, but Mara had learned to understand patterns quickly. As they moved, sounds of chaos echoed from the main halls. The Velari guards clashed with the intruders, their weapons sparking, their shields flaring. Mara and the queen moved silently past them, using the shadows and hidden panels to stay out of sight. Mara whispered instructions to Zoria. "Keep close to me and do not touch anything unless I tell you. These doors and panels are sensitive. One wrong move could alert the attackers." Zoria nodded, her fingers brushing lightly against Mara's arm for support. For the first time, Mara noticed how fragile the queen appeared in the human sense, despite her powerful presence. This thought only strengthened her resolve. Humans were not known for super strength, but courage was a strength no machine or weapon could match. They reached a junction where two corridors split in opposite directions. Mara examined the maps she had memorized. One path led to the hangar, where smaller escape shuttles were kept. The other led deeper into the palace, where secret tunnels opened to the mountains outside. Mara chose the tunnels. "The hangar is too exposed. If they are faster than Velari craft, the ships will be destroyed before we can leave. The tunnels give us a chance to stay ahead. As they moved through the tunnels, Mara noticed signs of the enemy's presence. Strange markings on the walls glowed faintly, indicating that the attackers had infiltrated parts of the palace. Mara realized that time was running out. Every second counted. At one point, they reached a heavy door with a complex lock mechanism. Mara examined it carefully. The lock required a series of symbols to be pressed in the correct sequence, a code she had observed in the palace archives. With steady hands, she activated the mechanism, and the door slid open silently. Zoria looked at Mara with admiration. "You think quickly," she said. Mara smiled faintly. "Humans have to, we survive by being adaptable." The tunnels twisted and turned, leading them deeper underground. At one point, they came across a collapsed section, likely caused by an earlier strike from the attackers. Mara did not hesitate. She lifted a heavy metal panel, creating a makeshift bridge, and helped Zoria across. It was exhausting work, but she never faltered. "Why are you doing this?" Zoria asked quietly, her voice filled with curiosity. Any human would have run like the guards. Mara glanced at the queen. "Because someone has to stay. Courage is not about strength or size. It's about doing what is right when everyone else is afraid. If I ran, there would be no hope for you or for the Alliance." The queen's eyes softened. "You are unlike any human I have met." Mara felt a surge of determination. "I intend to prove that humans can be trusted, even in the worst situations." The tunnels finally opened into a vast chamber beneath the palace. Here, ancient machines hummed with unknown power, their lights flickering. This was the chamber Mara had discovered during a previous tour, a place few aliens had ever entered. She led the queen to a small platform that could transport them to the outer mountains using an anti-gravity lift. Mara activated the lift, and it began to rise slowly. The vibrations from above reminded her of the battle still raging in the palace. She could hear distant shouts, the clash of energy weapons, and the rumble of explosions. But she did not falter. The queen's safety was her mission. As they rose, Mara kept a close eye on the monitors. Enemy ships were now hovering above the palace, scanning for signs of the queen. One small mistake could reveal their position. Mara's mind raced, calculating distances, angles, and timing. Finally, they emerged from the mountain tunnels, the cool air of the high peaks surrounding them. The palace was visible in the distance, a glowing jewel now under siege. Mara guided the queen to a rocky ledge where they could hide temporarily and plan their next move. The queen looked at Mara, her voice filled with awe. "I do not know how you do it, human. When the guards ran, you stayed. You are remarkable." Mara smiled. "It's not about being remarkable. It's about doing what must be done. We humans have a way of surviving against all odds." "You will see it in action." From their vantage point, they watched as the attackers scoured the palace, unaware that their target had already slipped through their grasp. Mara knew this was only the beginning. The enemy was clever, persistent, and powerful. But she also knew that humans had one advantage no machine or alien strategy could overcome: adaptability, courage, and the will to act when others faltered. And so, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the planet, Mara prepared for what would come next. The palace might be under attack, and the Velari guards might have fled, but one human had stayed, and that one human could change the course of this battle. The mountain air was sharp and cold, a thin wind brushing against Mara Keen's face as she scanned the horizon. The palace of Queen Zoria gleamed in the distance, its spires glowing even under the fading sunlight. Smoke rose from some towers, proof of the attackers' devastation. Despite the destruction, Mara kept moving, guiding the queen along narrow ledges and hidden paths. Every step mattered. Every second counted. Queen Zoria followed quietly, her tall form swaying slightly to maintain balance on the rocky terrain. Though she was a ruler accustomed to command and ceremony, she had no training for fleeing on rugged mountainsides. Mara stayed close, her hand occasionally brushing against the queen's to steady her. "Are these creatures faster than your guard ships?" Zoria asked quietly, her voice tinged with worry. "They are fast," Mara replied. "Faster than anything the Velari usually face. But speed alone is not enough. We have to think smarter, use the terrain, and stay one step ahead." Zoria's eyes widened as she considered the human's words. Velari soldiers were trained to rely on strength, weapons, and technology. Strategy mattered, yes, but instinctive improvisation, as Mara suggested, was rare among them. Humans, it seemed, had a gift she could only admire. They continued along a hidden ridge, the valley below stretching wide and dangerous. Mara knew this terrain well. She had memorized maps of the region before her assignment. It gave her an edge. While the Queen's guards had fled in panic, Mara relied on knowledge, quick thinking, and courage. As they moved, Mara noticed faint glowing tracks along the rocks, signs of the enemy's scanning devices. These devices emitted pulses of light that could detect heat signatures. Mara quickly covered the Queen with her cloak, shielding her from detection. "Keep low," Mara whispered. "The light from these machines bounces differently on human and Velari forms. If we stay close together, we can blend with the shadows." Zoria nodded, clearly impressed. "I had thought humans were fragile," she admitted softly. "Yet you act as though nothing can stop you." Mara smiled faintly, though her mind was entirely focused. "Fragile, perhaps, but humans are clever. We survive because we adapt, not because we are the strongest." Their careful path led them to an old observatory perched on a cliff, a structure abandoned centuries ago. The building's glass dome was cracked and covered in dust, but inside, Mara found an ancient control panel connected to a weathered communication system. She ran her fingers over the alien symbols, recognizing patterns that allowed her to access the system. "We can use this to send a false signal," Mara explained. "It will make the attackers think we are in a different location." Zoria leaned over, watching as Mara's human ingenuity turned the old system into a tactical advantage. "You are remarkable," the Queen murmured. "Velari engineers would not have done this so quickly." Mara shrugged lightly. "Humans don't wait for perfection, we act. Then we adjust as needed." Minutes passed, but Mara's focus never wavered. She transmitted the signal, creating the illusion that the Queen had fled to the far side of the valley. The enemy drones, fooled by the false heat signatures, shifted direction. Mara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction, one step closer to safety. But their journey was far from over. As they exited the observatory, Mara noticed movement in the shadows below. A small patrol of enemy scouts had detected something amiss. She froze, assessing the situation. "Stay behind me," Mara instructed, her voice firm. She grabbed a nearby metal rod, improvising a weapon. Though unarmed by human standards, she could use her surroundings. Humans were resourceful in ways Velari often overlooked. The patrol moved closer, scanning with strange instruments. Mara ducked behind a boulder, motioning for the Queen to follow. One wrong move, and they could be discovered. Mara's mind raced. She needed a distraction. Spotting a pile of loose rocks above the patrol's path, she kicked them carefully. The rocks tumbled down, hitting the ground near the scouts with a loud crash. The patrol spun around, momentarily confused. "Now," Mara whispered. She grabbed the Queen's arm and pulled her toward a narrow canyon path Mara had spotted earlier. They slipped through the rocks just as the patrol recovered and began scanning the area again. Zoria's breath was heavy as they ran, but her trust in Mara deepened. "You are not like the Velari," she said quietly. "When others flee, you think. When others hide, you act. I see why humans are respected by the Alliance." Mara did not respond immediately. Every step was calculated. Every rock, every shadow, every gust of wind could mean life or death. They descended into the canyon, moving as silently as possible. At the bottom, they found a small stream, the water reflecting the twilight sky. Mara paused, taking in the surroundings. "We can rest for a few minutes," she said, "but we cannot stay long. The enemy will catch up if we linger." Zoria knelt beside the stream, dipping her hands into the water. "This is strange," she murmured. "Even in flight, humans remain calm." Mara knelt beside her. "We have to. Panic is contagious. If I lose focus, you lose focus. And if we lose focus, we both die." They drank from the stream and ate small rations Mara had packed for emergencies. Even in dire circumstances, Mara's preparation reflected human foresight, a trait the Velari admired but rarely prioritized. As night fell, Mara led the Queen further into the canyon, the shadows deepening. The enemy ships had not stopped, but their sensors were misled by the false signals. Mara used the cover of darkness to navigate rocky paths, avoiding open areas where detection was more likely. Suddenly, they came to a collapsed bridge spanning a deep chasm. Mara studied the area, weighing the risks. The bridge was the fastest route to the next plateau, but it was unstable. "We can cross," Mara said, determination in her eyes. "But we must be careful. One misstep could be fatal." Zoria's eyes widened, but she trusted Mara. "Lead the way," she said firmly. Mara tested the structure first, shifting weight slowly. The old materials groaned but held. She extended her hand to the queen, guiding her across carefully. Step by step, they made it to the other side, hearts pounding but unbroken. Once across, they paused to catch their breath. The stars were visible now, bright and distant, a reminder of the galaxy's vastness. Myra glanced at the queen. "Humans are small, fragile creatures in the universe," she said. "But courage does not depend on size. It depends on will." Zoria's eyes glimmered with admiration. "I see it now. You act when others hesitate. You protect when others flee. That is true strength." The queen's words gave Mara renewed determination. She knew that the journey ahead would be even more dangerous. Enemy forces were relentless, and the path to safety was filled with unknowns. Yet, humans had a way of turning disadvantage into advantage, using creativity and instinct to survive against all odds. They continued their flight, moving through a maze of narrow canyons and rocky ridges. Mara's knowledge of the terrain allowed them to avoid natural hazards and enemy patrols. Every decision was critical. One wrong turn could lead them into a trap. At one point, they came to a wide canyon wall, smooth and steep. Mara examined it and spotted an old climbing route used by explorers long ago. "We can climb this," she said. "It will take time, but it will get us out of the canyon and give us a better vantage point." Zoria looked hesitant. "I have never climbed like this," she admitted. "You don't need to," Mara said with confidence. "I'll guide you. Humans are used to adapting to challenges we've never faced before." Step by step, Mara led the queen up the cliff. Her strength was not unmatched, but her planning and experience made the climb possible. When they reached the top, the world stretched out below them, vast and full of danger. But Mara felt a surge of hope. They were still alive, and they had each other. As they rested on the cliff, Mara looked out toward the distant horizon. Enemy ships patrolled the skies, searching for the missing queen, unaware that she was now beyond immediate reach. Mara's mind raced, thinking of the next steps. She needed to find shelter, allies, and a way to fight back if necessary. But for now, they had survived the first night. And in the quiet of the stars, Mara realized that the true challenge was only beginning. The queen's flight had started, and with it, a human's courage would be tested in ways no Velari or alien could fully understand. Mara turned to Zoria. "We made it this far, but the journey is not over. Stay close. Trust me. That is the only way we will survive." Zoria nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between human and queen. The galaxy was dangerous, full of unknown threats, but together they could face what was coming. And as the stars shimmered above, Mara felt the unshakable certainty of one truth. Humans would not run when others fled. Humans would stay, fight, and survive. The cliffside gave Mara and Queen Zoria a vantage point unlike any the palace's grand halls could offer. Below them, the Velari city stretched wide, its lights shimmering against the night sky. The enemy fleet, dark and sleek, hovered over the main palace, scanning for the queen, unaware that she had already escaped. Mara squinted through her portable telescope, noting the positions of enemy ships, their formations and patterns. "They are organized," she said quietly, more to herself than to the queen. "They move faster than anything the Velari have faced, but organization is predictable." "Predictability is a weakness we can use." Zoria nodded, silently absorbing the human's analysis. "Your confidence amazes me," she said. "Even when danger surrounds us, you do not hesitate. You plan, you act, and you survive." Mara glanced at the queen. "Confidence is not enough. Observation, strategy, and improvisation, that is what keeps us alive." They waited in silence as the night deepened. The wind whipped across the cliff, carrying with it the faint hum of distant ships. Mara's sharp eyes caught movement in the shadows near a lower plateau. Enemy scouts had detected something and were approaching. She touched Zoria's arm. "We cannot stay here," Mara whispered. "We need a safer route to reach the hangar. It is our best chance for escape." They began descending the cliff, using a series of narrow ledges and natural handholds. The queen, though nervous, followed Mara's guidance carefully. Every step required concentration. One misstep could send them plummeting into the valley below. Mara's steady voice and firm guidance gave Zoria the courage to continue. By midnight, they reached a dense forest at the edge of the mountains. The trees were tall, their leaves glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns unique to Rilithar. Mara led the Queen along a barely visible path, avoiding open clearings where enemy sensors could detect them. "We are close," Mara said. "The hangar is just beyond this forest. If we can reach it, we have a chance to escape by shuttle." Zoria's face reflected both hope and concern. "The hangar, will the ships there be enough?" Mara nodded. "It will have to be, and I have an idea to give us an advantage. Humans are good at combining old technology with new ideas. That is how we survive against stronger enemies." They emerged from the forest into a rocky clearing overlooking the hangar. The facility was partially hidden in a canyon, shielded by energy barriers and concealed turrets. Mara scanned the hangar carefully. Enemy drones patrolled the airspace, moving in irregular patterns but maintaining coverage of all possible exit points. "This will be tricky," Mara muttered. "We cannot fight them head-on. We need to use deception and speed." Zoria looked at her, admiration evident in her glowing eyes. "You do not fear them?" Mara shook her head. "Fear slows humans down. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it." Mara led the Queen along a series of natural rock formations that provided cover from the drone's sensors. She carefully calculated the timing of each movement, waiting for moments when the drone's patrol paths created gaps. Finally, they reached the outer perimeter of the hangar. Mara crouched behind a rock, studying the energy barriers that protected the entrance. The shields were powerful, designed to withstand direct attacks, but Mara noticed a pattern in the energy pulses. There was a brief moment when the barrier weakened, just long enough to slip through if timed perfectly. "We have a small window," Mara whispered. "When the pulse drops, we run, no hesitation, move quickly and stay close to me." Zoria nodded. Mara counted silently, 1, 2, 3, and then they sprinted across the open ground. The energy shield pulsed, and for a heartbeat, it dimmed. Mara pushed the Queen forward, and they passed through the barrier just as it reactivated. The enemy drones above scanned briefly but could not detect the cloaked signal Mara had transmitted earlier. Inside the hangar, rows of small shuttles waited. Some were old and dusty, others maintained in pristine condition. Mara quickly assessed the available options. "We will use this one," she said, pointing to a sleek shuttle designed for reconnaissance missions. It was fast, maneuverable, and small enough to avoid the attention of larger enemy ships. As Mara prepared the shuttle, Zoria moved to inspect the controls. "I have never operated such a craft," the Queen admitted. "You won't have to," Mara replied. "I'll pilot. You stay low and follow my instructions. This shuttle is fast, but the enemy will try to intercept us. We rely on speed, stealth, and human ingenuity." Mara activated the shuttle. The engines hummed quietly, almost silent, unlike the large warships above. She navigated carefully through the hangar, avoiding security cameras and automated turrets. Every movement was precise, every decision mattered. As they reached the exit, Mara's sensors detected enemy fighters moving into the outer skies. The patrols were faster than she expected, closing the distance quickly. She turned to the Queen. "We are about to enter open space. Hold tight, we may have to improvise." Zoria grasped the seat, her glowing eyes wide but filled with trust. Mara activated the shuttle's cloaking device, a combination of Velari technology and human modifications she had made. The shuttle shimmered, blending with the dark space around them. The enemy ships scanned, unaware of their presence. Mara navigated through asteroid fields, weaving between large rocks with precise movements. She calculated each trajectory carefully, using the terrain as a shield while keeping a clear path toward open space. "Humans are incredible," Zoria whispered, her voice trembling slightly with awe. "I never imagined such skill under pressure." Mara smiled faintly. "It's not just skill, it's adaptability. Humans survive because we think differently. We use what is available and act when others hesitate." The shuttle continued through the asteroid field, the enemy ships following patterns Mara had predicted. One of the faster ships attempted to intercept them, but Mara used a combination of sudden maneuvers and small asteroid cover to avoid detection. Hours passed as they navigated through the dangerous field, each second stretching the limits of endurance. Mara monitored every sensor, every shadow, every blip of movement. She calculated trajectories, adjusted speed, and maintained a constant awareness of the surrounding space. Finally, they reached open space beyond the asteroid field. The enemy fleet was still in pursuit, but the cloaking device, combined with careful navigation, had given them a head start. Mara allowed herself a small moment of relief. They had survived another critical phase of their escape. Zoria exhaled, her luminous eyes softening as she looked at Mara. "I have never seen such courage," she said. "You risked everything for me when the guards fled. That is extraordinary." Mara glanced at the Queen. "It is what humans do. We face danger because we must. We protect those who cannot defend themselves when others run. That is our strength." The Queen remained silent for a moment, clearly reflecting on the human's words. "I will remember this, Mara Keen. Your actions today will be told among my people for generations." Mara focused on the controls, guiding the shuttle toward a hidden station in a neutral system. The station was small, uncharted, and lightly defended. It would provide a temporary refuge and allow them to plan the next move. As they approached the station, Mara activated the shuttle's communication system. She sent a coded message to potential allies, indicating their location and requesting assistance. The response was delayed, but it came, confirmation that help would arrive, though not immediately. Zoria looked at Mara, her expression a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "I do not understand humans completely," she admitted. "We rely on strength, weapons, and order. You rely on courage, quick thinking, and creativity, yet you survive when others fall. That is remarkable." Mara shrugged lightly. "Humans have always survived by adapting. We face the impossible and we do what must be done. That is why we are still here." The shuttle docked safely at the station and Mara powered down the engines. For the first time in hours, they could breathe, relax, and assess their next steps. The Queen looked out at the stars, reflecting on the journey so far. Mara remained vigilant, knowing the enemy would not give up easily. In that quiet moment, the bond between human and alien strengthened. Mara's courage, intelligence, and unwavering focus had protected the Queen and given her a chance to survive. Zoria had seen firsthand what humans could do when others faltered, and it was a lesson she would never forget. Mara prepared the shuttle for repairs and maintenance. The journey ahead would be even more dangerous, but for now, they had a temporary safe haven. The enemy fleet continued its patrols far away, unaware that the Queen had escaped. Mara allowed herself a small smile. One human had stayed when others ran. And one human could make a difference in the survival of a queen, and perhaps the future of the galaxy. The small station hung quietly in orbit around a rocky, uninhabited planet. From the outside, it looked almost abandoned, a forgotten relic of exploration missions long past. Inside, however, Mara Keen moved with purpose. Tools clanged softly against metal surfaces, consoles hummed with life, and a faint smell of ozone filled the air. The station's systems were old but functional, a perfect place for repair, planning, and preparation. Queen Zoria stood near a wide observation window, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars. She had grown accustomed to the quiet efficiency of humans, and Mara's presence had become a source of comfort and security. Yet, even here, there was no time to relax. Mara knew the enemy fleet would not give up easily. "We need to act quickly," Mara said, scanning the shuttle's readouts. "They are fast, organized, and persistent. If we stay idle too long, they will find us. But the advantage we have here is unexpected. Their strategy is predictable. They assume the Queen will flee in the obvious direction. We will use that against them." Zoria tilted her head, intrigued. "And how will humans accomplish this?" Mara smiled faintly. "By being unpredictable, by thinking differently. That is what humans do best." Mara's plan was simple but risky. Using the station's old but functional sensors, she would simulate the Queen's escape trajectory toward another system. At the same time, she would prepare the shuttle for a sudden jump through a hidden space route, a route so narrow and dangerous that no enemy ship could navigate it easily. While Mara worked, Zoria studied her actions. "You are remarkable," the Queen said. "No Veleri guard would attempt such a strategy. They rely on strength, weapons, and numbers. You rely on ingenuity." Mara chuckled softly. "Ingenuity and observation. Humans survive because we see possibilities others miss. We adapt. We take risks when necessary. That is our strength." Hours passed as Mara recalibrated the shuttle systems. Every calculation had to be precise. One misstep could send them into the planet below or reveal their position to the enemy. She worked tirelessly, her mind moving faster than any machine in the station. Zoria watched in awe as Mara adjusted coordinates, shield harmonics, and engine calibrations, all to give them an edge the enemy would never expect. Finally, Mara activated the shuttle's secondary cloaking system. It was crude but effective, blending human engineering with Velari technology. "This will make us invisible to most standard scans," Mara explained. "It won't last long, so we must move fast. Once the jump route is ready, we leave." Zoria nodded, her trust in the human absolute. "Lead the way," she said. As Mara piloted the shuttle out of the station's hangar, the enemy fleet had already detected movement nearby. Mara's sensors registered incoming drones and smaller attack vessels. She activated the cloaking device, and the shuttle shimmered, almost blending into the void of space. The first wave of enemy ships passed, scanning for signs of life, unaware that their target was already slipping past their sensors. Mara's calculations proved correct. The human ability to think unpredictably had created a significant advantage. "We are not safe yet," Mara said, her voice calm but firm. "They may have lost track of us, but they will adapt. We need to reach the jump point before they realize our direction." The shuttle maneuvered through a dense asteroid field, Mara using the terrain as cover. The enemy ships were faster but less precise. They followed predictable paths, reacting to movement instead of anticipating it. Mara used this predictability to her advantage, weaving through narrow gaps and avoiding detection. "Humans are clever," Zoria whispered. "I have seen many battles, but never such precision under pressure." Mara glanced at the Queen. "Clever, yes, but it is more than that. We survive by adapting. When the rules change, we change faster than anyone expects. That is why we are still alive in this galaxy." Suddenly, Mara's sensors detected an enemy squadron attempting to flank them. They had anticipated a straightforward escape, but had not expected the narrow asteroid route Mara chose. Mara's fingers moved swiftly over the controls, calculating trajectories and velocities in real time. "Hold tight," Mara said, her voice steady. "We are going to give them a lesson they will not forget." Using a series of sudden maneuvers, Mara led the enemy ships into the densest part of the asteroid field. The ships were fast, but their size made them less maneuverable. Mara's shuttle darted between massive rocks with precision, using the field as both shield and weapon. The enemy was forced to slow, giving Mara the opening to accelerate toward the hidden jump route. Zoria clutched her seat, her luminous eyes wide. "I cannot believe the speed and control," she exclaimed. Mara smiled faintly. "Humans survive by thinking on their feet. When others rely solely on strength or speed, we use our minds. That is the advantage humans always have." They emerged from the asteroid field into open space. Mara's sensors indicated the jump point was near, a narrow passage between two massive asteroids. The path was dangerous, but Mara had calculated every angle, every timing window. This was their chance to disappear from the enemy's reach. "Almost there," Mara said. "Stay calm and trust me." The shuttle rocketed forward, navigating the tight path with flawless precision. Enemy ships scrambled to follow, but one miscalculation forced them into a collision course with the asteroids. Mara's prediction had been correct. The enemy could not match human adaptability under such conditions. Finally, the shuttle reached the jump point. Mara activated the engines, initiating the spacefold jump. The stars stretched into long streaks of light as the shuttle accelerated beyond conventional limits. For a moment, there was silence inside the cabin, the tension releasing like a coiled spring. When the shuttle emerged on the other side, they were in a neutral sector of space, far from the immediate reach of the enemy. Mara powered down the cloaking system, letting the shuttle's lights glow softly against the darkness. Zoria exhaled, relief washing over her features. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "The enemy, they cannot follow us here." Mara nodded, though she remained vigilant. "Not yet, but this is only temporary. We need a safe place to plan the next move. This sector is uncharted, which gives us an advantage. The enemy will search predictable paths. Humans do not take predictable paths." Zoria studied Mara, admiration deepening. "I have never seen anyone think so clearly under pressure. Velari soldiers rely on training and numbers, yet you rely on your mind." "That is extraordinary." Mara allowed herself a small smile. "It is what humans do. When others flee, we stay. When others panic, we act. That is the human advantage." The Queen fell silent, reflecting on the words. Mara's courage, intelligence, and adaptability were unlike anything she had witnessed. The trust between them had grown stronger during the escape, and Zoria realized that humans were capable of feats Velari often underestimated. Mara piloted the shuttle toward a small, hidden asteroid base Mara had located during previous missions. The base was abandoned, but fully functional, with life support, energy, and repair facilities. It would serve as a temporary refuge, giving them time to recover and plan. As they docked, Mara checked every system. The shuttle was damaged in minor ways during the escape, but nothing critical. She began repairs immediately, while Zoria observed, asking questions about human techniques and strategies. "You are persistent," Zoria said, watching Mara work. "Even now, after such a dangerous journey, you continue without hesitation." Mara paused, wiping sweat from her brow. "Persistence is survival. Humans have survived against impossible odds for centuries. We do not stop until the goal is achieved. That is what allows us to protect others, even when the odds are against us." Zoria nodded slowly. "I understand now. Courage, intelligence, and perseverance, these are your strengths. I have underestimated humans. Never again." Mara smiled faintly. "It is not about underestimating or overestimating. It is about understanding. When you understand human nature, you realize that we will not run. That is what makes us reliable allies." Night fell across the asteroid base, and the stars shone brightly beyond the observation windows. Mara and Zoria sat quietly, the tension of the day slowly fading. The Queen's safety was secure for now, thanks to human ingenuity and courage. But Mara knew the enemy was still out there, relentless and determined. Their pursuit would continue. Every decision, every movement would matter. And when the time came, human adaptability and quick thinking would once again be the deciding factor in survival. Mara looked at Zoria. "The galaxy is dangerous, Queen Zoria, but humans have a way of facing the impossible, and we act when others hesitate. That is why we are still alive, and why you are still alive." Zoria met her gaze, the weight of understanding settling in. "I see it now. When others fled, you stayed. When others panicked, you acted. That is why humans are extraordinary." Mara allowed herself a final smile that night. One human had stayed. One human had used intelligence, courage, and adaptability to protect a queen and outsmart an entire fleet. And one human could continue to make a difference, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The asteroid base was quiet now, a haven of calm after the chaos of the past days. Outside, the stars shimmered against the black expanse of space, each one a distant reminder of the galaxy's infinite possibilities. Inside, Mara Keen worked tirelessly, repairing the shuttle, recalibrating the station's sensors, and preparing for whatever would come next. Queen Zoria watched her silently, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and admiration. The human beside her had done what no Velari soldier could: act decisively when others fled, think clearly under pressure, and protect her life against impossible odds. "You work without rest," Zoria said finally, her luminous voice echoing softly in the chamber. Mara paused, looking up. "There is no time for rest, Your Majesty. The enemy is still out there. They will search every predictable path. We must be ready." Zoria studied Mara for a moment, then nodded. "I understand now. Velari rely on power and strategy, yes, but humans have something different, something I have never fully appreciated until now." Mara smiled faintly. "It is called adaptability, courage. The willingness to act when others hesitate. That is what keeps humans alive." The Queen's eyes softened. "You have not only kept me alive, Mara Keen, you have shown me a new way of seeing strength. I will remember this." Mara returned to her work, knowing the calm would be temporary. She ran diagnostics on the shuttle. Minor damage from the asteroid maneuvering could be repaired, but she also had to prepare for a final confrontation if the enemy discovered their location. Using the station's old systems, she mapped out possible escape routes, each one safer than the last, all designed to exploit the enemy's predictable patterns. Hours later, Mara had finished her preparations. She turned to the Queen. "We need to leave this station soon. Staying too long will allow the enemy to triangulate our position." Zoria rose from her seat, her regal presence unwavering even in a time of danger. "I will follow you anywhere, Mara Keen. Your courage has proven that humans are capable of extraordinary things. Lead the way." The shuttle's engines hummed softly as Mara guided it out of the docking bay. The craft was small, nimble, and perfectly suited for evasive maneuvers. The enemy fleet had not yet located them, but Mara knew they could not remain complacent. As they left the asteroid base, Mara activated the shuttle's secondary cloaking device. The ship shimmered against the backdrop of space, nearly invisible to any scanning system. Mara's heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of using strategy, intelligence, and adaptability to gain the upper hand. The first sign of danger appeared moments later. Sensors detected enemy drones patrolling the sector, moving in an orderly pattern, assuming the Queen would try a predictable escape. Mara's mind calculated trajectories, speeds, and probabilities. "We will use their assumptions against them," she said calmly to the Queen. "They expect us to move fast in a straight line. We will move differently, unpredictably." The shuttle darted toward a dense asteroid belt, weaving between massive rocks. Enemy drones followed, but their size and rigidity prevented them from matching Mara's nimble maneuvers. She exploited every shadow, every crevice, and every angle to avoid detection. Zoria gripped her seat, her glowing hands trembling slightly with awe. "You are incredible. Humans survive by thinking in ways no Velari could imagine." Mara smiled faintly. "We survive by adapting. When others hesitate, we act. When others run, we stay. That is the human advantage." As they navigated the asteroid belt, Mara detected a larger enemy ship entering the sector. It was a heavy cruiser, equipped with sensors far more advanced than the drones. Mara's mind worked quickly. She could not outrun it in a straight chase. She had to create an opportunity. Spotting a narrow passage between two massive asteroids, Mara calculated the risk. The gap was tight, barely wide enough for the shuttle, but large enough to trap the cruiser if it attempted to follow. "Hold tight," Mara said. "We are going to make them overreach." She accelerated, steering the shuttle toward the narrow passage with perfect precision. The cruiser followed, confident in its superior technology. But as it entered the asteroid gap, the vessel miscalculated. Its massive hull scraped against the rocks, slowing its advance and forcing it to retreat. Mara's quick thinking had turned a dangerous situation into an advantage. Zoria exhaled in relief. "Your actions, they are brilliant. The enemy relies on power. You rely on intelligence and adaptability. That is the true strength of humans." Mara smiled faintly, returning her focus to the controls. "Strength is not just in weapons or numbers. It is in courage, intelligence, and the ability to act when others freeze." They continued through the asteroid field, using Mara's ingenuity to stay ahead of the enemy fleet. Every maneuver, every decision, showcased the human ability to improvise and adapt. The Queen watched in amazement as the human beside her continually found solutions to problems the Velari had never considered. Finally, Mara guided the shuttle toward a neutral system, one uncharted and lightly monitored. Here, they could regroup, plan their next moves, and remain undetected by the enemy. The journey was not over, but for the first time since fleeing the palace, a sense of relief settled over both Mara and Zoria. The shuttle docked at a hidden station within the system. Mara powered down the engines and ran diagnostics, ensuring everything was fully functional. Zoria watched, her admiration deepening. "You have not only protected me," Zoria said, her voice filled with warmth. "You have shown me a new way to think about strength and courage. Humans, you are truly extraordinary." Mara shook her head, humility in her expression. "I am just one human, Your Majesty, but humans have a way of surviving even in impossible situations. Courage, quick thinking, and the willingness to act, that is what makes us strong." The Queen considered this carefully. "I have seen it firsthand. While my guards fled, you stayed. While others panicked, you acted. That is why we live to fight another day. That is why I am alive." Mara allowed herself a small smile. "It is what humans do. When others run, we stay. When others hesitate, we act. That is how we change the outcome." For hours, they planned their next steps. Mara studied maps, communication channels, and enemy fleet movements. Zoria contributed with her knowledge of Velari strategies, but it was Mara's human adaptability that shaped the plan. Together, they formed a partnership that combined instinct, intelligence, and courage. As the stars shone outside the station windows, Mara reflected on the journey so far. One human had made the difference between life and death for a queen. One human had outsmarted an entire fleet through ingenuity and courage. And one human had proven beyond doubt that even when all others ran, humans would stay and succeed. The queen approached Mara, her glowing eyes filled with respect. "I will never forget this, Mara Keen. You have not only saved me, but you have changed how I see humans. I will tell others of your courage, your intelligence, and your determination. You are a symbol of what humans can achieve." Mara smiled, her heart steady. "I did what any human would do. But it is good to know that our actions can inspire others, even across species." Zoria placed her hand gently on Mara's shoulder. "You have taught me a lesson that I will carry for the rest of my reign. When others run, humans stay. When others panic, humans act." "That is the essence of true courage," Mara nodded. "And the essence of survival. Humans may be small, fragile, and underestimated, but when it matters most, we make the difference." The two stood together, looking out at the galaxy, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges. But for now, they had survived. For now, the Queen was safe, and human ingenuity had proven its worth beyond question. In the quiet of the neutral station, Mara allowed herself a final thought. One human had stayed. One human had faced the impossible and protected a queen. One human had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome any challenge, even the mightiest enemy fleet in the galaxy. And as the stars stretched infinitely across the dark void, Mara Keen knew that humans would continue to stay, to act, and to make a difference, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The Queen's survival was secured, the enemy foiled for now, and the bond between human and alien stronger than ever. Humanity had proven once again that when the guards ran, the humans stayed, and that truth would echo across the stars for generations to come.